So you teach the survey, the first part, does it go to 1865 and then
Yes.
after 1865 on American religion, right?
Yeah. When I came here, I was it was one course in a semester, the whole sweep of American religious history, and very quickly I divided into two. Probably could do three actually because there's so much material to cover.
Where would you split it if it was three?
Good question. Probably right after the Second Great Awakening, and then maybe around 1900. That's just a guess. I haven't, without having thought about it more than 4 seconds.
If when students, didn't mean to call them kids, when students take the class with you, in the end, what are maybe two things that you hope that they come out of the other end knowing about religion in American history?
It wouldn't surprise you to hear that what I want is for them to understand the role that religion has played in shaping American culture, but also the opposite. What's fascinating to me about religion in America is the ways in which the culture has shaped religious expression in America. So it's this kind of dialectical relationship between the two. And I think one of the reasons it's so important is that very few students come to college with any real sense of the importance of religion in American society or history or culture. And I think that's because of misguided understandings or misunderstandings about the First Amendment. So that particularly those coming out of public schools, and even in an Ivy League school, university, you have students coming out of public education. They come out of a situation where the teacher or the principal or the superintendent tells teachers, you can't teach about that. You can't teach about anything about religion because of misguided fears about the First Amendment and separation of church and state. And so it's just easier in a lot of school districts just to avoid it altogether. So you teach about the Vietnam War, and you teach about the Vietnam War. You don't teach about say, religious-based opposition to the Vietnam War or support for the Vietnam War. You talk about the pilgrims, and you have Thanksgiving and pilgrim hats and all that sort of thing, without understanding the real religious motivations for the settlement of the New World or the Puritans and so forth. So, I think what I hope to offer is a kind of gloss on understandings of American history that simply are not there. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, one of the courses I developed 8-9 years ago was religion and the civil rights movement. Now, I'm not the best person to teach anything about civil rights. I'd be the first one to acknowledge that. But I realized at the time that I was talking about the civil rights movement. The students had no idea what I was talking about. Many of them just had these blank faces. And I looked at the curriculum here in the entire university, Columbia University. There was, at least at the time, not a single course on the civil rights movement, much less religion in the civil rights movement. And so I decided, I'm not the best person to do it. I'm willing to acknowledge that, but somebody should be teaching something about the civil rights movement. So I developed a course that's become fairly popular that deals with that particular question, particularly from a religious angle.
What would be some of the aha things, like a kid who, a student who takes the survey that you're teaching right now that goes up to 1865? Would they have certain aha moments where they would say, I never knew that this was tied to a religious phenomenon? Yeah, just what's fresh in my mind over the last week or so as I've been talking about utopian societies and utopian movements. The Shakers with their various inventions, the flat-headed broom and the clothespin and so forth. At some point, usually in the second part of it, I talk about the religious origins of cornflakes and graham crackers and things of that sort. And that's kind of entertaining, kind of amusing stuff to undergraduates. I had no idea. And it's hard to think about the connection between Sugar Crisp cereal or something.
Yes, right. Fruit Loops, right?
Yeah, Fruit Loops. Yeah.
That's right. But and so I sort of tease them with that early in the semester and say, well, in the course of the semester you'll learn about so and so, or I did a little bit today with Thomas Merton, who was actually an undergraduate here at Columbia and wandered into Corpus Christi Church and changed his life. I mean, here you had this remarkable individual who, as an undergraduate, was a hellion. Apparently, he was a womanizer.
And some of that in Seven Story Mountain, there's a little bit of that.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And just, I'll bore you with this little anecdote. I was doing something for the Columbia alumni out in San Diego. This is 20 years ago. And for some reason I mentioned something about Merton or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. But one of the alums came up and said, he said, I would lived on the same floor in John Jay Hall with both Thomas Merton and Jack Kerouac.
Wow.
I said, oh, but you got a story or two. He said Jack Kerouac was the quietest, most docile person you could imagine, and Thomas Merton was out raising hell every night. He was women constantly and so forth. And here you had this wonderful, almost a reversal of roles that occurred at some time during their.
Well, especially in the '60s. I mean, by the late '60s, when Kerouac has become just a really sad drunk,
and
exactly right.
Yeah, dissolute, really, in many ways. Yeah,
right.
There's just